a menace, let's put it that way. And but it just shows you some of the distorted thinking out there. But within the ranks of the newsletter writers, they're hopelessly befuddled. There was a conference coming up in
All right, hold on. Let's talk about the conference in just a second. Bob Chapman with us, the International Forecaster. You are listening to Liberty Roundtable Live, the internationalforecaster.com. With you live, ladies and gentlemen. Bob Chapman with us, the internationalforecaster.com. Bob, sorry about the short interruption. We appreciate it. You were talking about a conference. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I haven't. I've only done one conference in 7 years, and I did it for a friend of mine, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and a man I've known for 35 years. And so, because I go out and make predictions, and I sometimes am controversial in my calls, and unfortunately for those who don't like my calls, I'm right most of the time. Two of the people who were attending the conferences set this next conference, which I am going to speak at by phone, and they said, well, he's too controversial, and I don't want to be on the program with him. And so the man who runs the program said, well, that's okay. I just don't bother to come back.
To the other people?
I think they were rather surprised.
Okay, so they're willing to stand up for the controversy, and they just say, hey, we're not saying you have to endorse what Bob says, but if you can't even appear on a panel, then see you later.
That's right.
Good for them.
And there's all kinds of jealousies involved, and the success of the forecaster, and all those kind of things. Because this,
and my response is that's a waste of time. Why feel threatened? Get out, do the best job you can.
Yeah.
There's plenty of room for plenty of people to tell their story as they see it. There's plenty of room and time to see who's right and who's wrong, and who does well at it and who doesn't. And there's plenty of opportunity everywhere. In other words, I don't like this idea that the pie's only so big and, oh, my goodness, I can't share the pie. I don't buy any of that, Bob.
No, I don't either. And the pie is big enough for everybody. In fact, my stuff is copied by just about everybody. And I don't care. My idea is to get the word out. I want the public to understand what to do and how to do it. And that's more important than anything else. And I'm certainly not interested in making piles of money at 74 years old. What am I going to do with it?
Fund radio.
Fund radio, huh?
Yeah, man, we just need to fund radio and good, honest people in the media everywhere. But Bob already does plenty of that. In fact, I was talking to Ted on Friday, and Ted was mentioning how he's got a gold coin, a fifth of an ounce of gold, and when you buy one of those, then you basically get he helps get a International Forecaster subscription for folks, and that's available now at MidasResources.com.
And he pays for that.
Yeah, he's a wonderful guy. He puts his money where his mouth is, doesn't he?
He certainly is. And I've been on the air with his programs. I started 16 years ago with Dr. Stan Monteith and Pastor Butch Parr and Erskine. And I still do those programs to this day.
Is that Erskine Overnight, Erskine Bowles?
Yeah, and then of course Joyce and Alex came along, and I do their shows. And anybody gets a hold of me. I did one Saturday night. I mean, most people won't do that. I did one Saturday night because somebody on GCN wanted me to do it. I said, sure, I'll do it.
And the thing about Bob Chapman, if you get his International Forecaster newsletter, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, it gives you a list of where he's going to appear when, with who. And I'm telling you, when you look at the roster, good, honest, hard-working people, man, standing up for liberty, book Bob Chapman because they want an update on what's really happening.
Well, I thank you, and I love doing it. And if you saw the letters that I get, you'd understand. The feeling that you're helping people is so great, and I'm happy that I'm blessed for it. That's all I can say. I'm at a loss for words, really.
I understand. There's an article in USA Today in the money section that I want to pick your brain on, Bob. It says credit unions to lift cap on loans by Paul Davidson as Congress pleads with banks to increase lending to small businesses to go ahead and help out with the recovery, One group of lenders is pushing for Congress to let them make more loans. Credit unions. Credit unions say the economic downturn presents their best opportunity ever to persuade lawmakers to raise the federal limit on their business lending. Anyway, the story goes on and on with their tax-exempt credit and everything else. And the whole point of this story is twofold. One, it just shows how regulated everything in banking really is already. And, a credit union versus a bank and this and that. But what happens if they just start getting out of control lending? They'll be in the same boat as the banks, sir.
That's right. And that's not a good idea, but they don't realize that because they don't understand the underlying problem. The underlying problem is now the bankers want to take the credit unions down with them.
That's true. Either that or make them irrelevant, one or the other.
No, I think it's take me down because I think they're getting ready over the next couple of years to take this whole thing down. The warning shot was against Greece. The 16 countries that are bankrupt. The U.S. and England are two of them. And they're just trying to decide now when they're going to take them all down.
And who's going to go
when? They
when?
do, they'll have a big meeting, and they'll revalue, devalue, multilaterally default. Most nations will devalue their currencies domestically, and that's how they think they're going to solve the problem. But then they have to wait about 10 years for the whole thing to work.
Yeah, but they don't have that kind of time, sir.
Well, they're going to have to take them down because they're going to go down anyway.
That's right.
You can't have banks running two sets of books, and brokerage firms and insurance companies. 7 major insurance companies got TARP funds, and they haven't paid them back because they're broke.
And they're not going to pay them back anytime soon.
18 banks who took them, 5 of them paid them back, but that doesn't mean anything because they're keeping 2 sets of books.
They are. It's dangerous to say the least. Now, I find that interesting. They're going for a takedown or to just relegate somebody to irrelevance and let them kind of shut down on their own. They're trying to make it appear not to happen, although that's getting harder and harder for them to do. But they're trying to make everybody believe this is just kind of par for the course, a needed purging, and they're trying to get people to believe in that lie.
Well, quite frankly, a purging is what they should have done in the first place.
Agreed.
That's what they did in 1920-21. But they were unwilling to do that because the idea when they brought this whole thing down was to implement world government. And if they're not successful, they're all going to end up going to jail or getting hung. And that's not very attractive. And so they are going to have to take it down,
us, sir.
Or it's going to get down anyway.
It is to honest men like us who want justice.
Well, it's more than that. It's just putting the system back into operation and not allowing fractional banking, which is bad enough at 8 to 10 times deposits. But they were out to 70 times. And they had to have known that 40 to 70 times lending times assets was suicidal. Simple.
But that's their agenda. They knew it full well.
They have to be stopped from doing that, which means the national bank system. It means no Federal Reserve. Any fractional banking that's done will be done by government, just the way it was set out under the Constitution, as talked about by Jefferson and Andrew Jackson and many others who believed in sound money and not private banking.
Amen to that. Now, I also saw a story that said, hey, why worry about Greece? California's woes are worse than Greece's, and California, when you think about it, is a bigger country.
A much bigger country, and Greece only makes up 2.5% of the GDP of the Eurozone. We have not only California, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and goodness knows how many more. I understand there's some 40 states that are on the edge, and they're going to have to cut back personnel by 30 to 40%. They're going to have to cut back pension payouts by an equal amount. Now, this is going to be very, very painful and very nasty, but they've got to do it or they'll cease to exist as entities.
They will, and where we go with that, I don't know. Meaning, the dismantling is what's going to be interesting to watch. It's going to be hard to predict what they do when to make it happen, but it's got to happen. It's got to deleverage.
And that's why it's so important for people who don't see their jobs being in jeopardy and their livelihood and their way of life to put away dehydrated and freeze-dried foods, things that you normally eat, now, because things are going to get rocky. You don't want to be there without food without a filter for water, and without a method of defending your family. You've got to get with it, people. If you're not there, please do so.
All right, so 140-plus banks failed, or 140 in 2009. We're already at 20-plus banks for 2010. They say 2010 numbers are going to dwarf 2009. What do you think the casualty numbers are going to be? It's hard to debate this because they call a bank what I would call multiple banks. One bank has like 14 branches or 29 branches or whatever. And in yesteryear, those were different banks. It's just the second and third and fourth rounds of consolidation makes them called one bank. But in your hometown, if it closes, it's a bank, even though they, quote, called it a branch. When we get back, I want Bob Chapman to respond to that because we're going to see a bunch of banks melt down. They say massive bank failures overdue, says oversight panel. It's just crazy. All right, quick pause. Bob Chapman with us, theinternationalforecaster.com.